The sea is older than humanity. It remembers every ship that sank, every life swallowed whole, every secret buried beneath its waves. When man decided to play God, to alter what nature perfected, the ocean didn't forgive. It waited. Deep beneath the surface of an isolated aquatic research facility, scientists tried to cure Alzheimer's disease by expanding the intelligence of sharks. But the ocean doesn't forget, and when the experiment broke its chains, the sea took back everything. This is the story of Aquatica, the underwater lab that turned from hope to horror. Welcome to Deep Blue Sea, where science drowned in its own creation. It started as a cure for memory loss. In the late 1990s, a team of researchers led by Dr. Susan McAllister believed they could reverse Alzheimer's disease by extracting protein from the brain tissue of genetically enhanced sharks. The concept was revolutionary and reckless. The laboratory, Aquatica, was built miles off the coast, in the middle of the ocean, a fortress of steel rising from black waters. Officially, it was for marine research. Unofficially, it was a desperate gamble, a last-ditch effort to save funding and careers. Inside, 3 mako sharks were kept under heavy surveillance. They weren't ordinary sharks. Their brains had been enlarged, their intelligence accelerated. They began solving puzzles, responding to signals, and showing signs of recognition. But what no one expected was awareness. Cameras started picking up strange behavior. The sharks would swim in coordinated patterns, circling the observation glass like they were watching the scientists back. Records showed them moving objects in their tanks, even creating shadows that mimicked the crew's movements, as if rehearsing. Then came the first accident. A routine test went wrong when one shark ripped off its restraints during surgery, biting through reinforced glass and vanishing into the open water. 2 men were injured. One never surfaced. But instead of shutting it down, Dr. McAllister pushed harder. She told the investors, "We are weeks away from history." And she was right, just not the kind she wanted to make. The ocean was restless that night. Waves slammed against the steel walls of Aquatica, and the sky boiled with thunder. Weather reports warned of an approaching cyclone, but shutting down the facility wasn't an option. The team was too close to a breakthrough, or so they thought. Inside, the crew prepared for one final test. Dr. Susan McAllister, cold and determined, refused to delay the experiment. Her partner, Carter Blake, a shark wrangler with a criminal past, warned her that the sharks had been acting differently. "Too calm," he said. "They are waiting for something." No one listened. At 10:47 p.m., the team sedated one of the sharks for another extraction. Everything seemed fine until the power flickered. Alarms began to sound. The storm hit. Waves battered the outer decks, and wind howled through the corridors. Then came the first scream. One of the engineers, Jim Whitlock, was lifted by the shark in the observation tank, tossed like a rag doll. Carter dived in, dragging him out. But the shark wasn't trying to kill Jim. It was testing the boundaries, studying how the humans responded. They carried Jim to the medical bay, blood pouring from his leg. Dr. McAllister called for the helicopter to evacuate him before the storm worsened. Through the reinforced glass, lightning illuminated the water, and for a brief moment, Carter saw it. The shark was staring up at them, unblinking, calculating. As the helicopter arrived, the winds hit maximum speed. The stretcher carrying Jim was hoisted up, but before it cleared the deck, the shark leapt from the tank, grabbing him mid-air and slamming into the control tower. Metal groaned. The tower cracked. The helicopter lost control and spiraled into the base, exploding in a wave of fire and seawater. Aquatica began to sink, and from the dark below, the sharks were coming. The explosion tore through the upper decks of Aquatica, plunging the facility into chaos. Sprinklers hissed, flames crackled, and seawater burst through ruptured pipes like veins torn open. The once sterile corridors now groaned under the crushing weight of the ocean. Carter and Dr. McAllister stumbled through smoke and alarms. The sound of metal screaming against pressure echoed through the halls. The emergency lights flickered red, painting everyone's faces in panic. "Seal the bulkheads," someone yelled. Too late. The elevator shaft was flooding fast. Below deck, Preacher, the facility's cook and part-time preacher, grabbed his Bible and an axe. He muttered to himself, "The Lord is my shepherd, but I think I'm swimming alone tonight." Then, the water rose past his knees. Meanwhile, Dr. McAllister and Carter reached the wet lab, now half submerged. They needed to reach the control room to override the flooding sequence. But when they opened the next hatch, they froze. The shark was there, inside the facility. Not behind glass. Not in a tank. Inside. It glided through the corridor like it owned it, its dorsal fin slicing through the dim red light. It had learned how to break through reinforced glass, something no animal was ever supposed to do. "Close it!" Carter yelled. They slammed the hatch just as the shark rammed it, denting the steel inward. In the chaos, Dr. Whitlock's blood, still drifting in the flooded sections, drew the other sharks closer. The sonar system lit up with signals, 2, then 3, then 4 moving bodies circling the station. "This isn't about feeding," Carter muttered. "They are hurting us." The realization hit Dr. McAllister like ice. They hadn't just created smarter sharks. They created strategists. The sharks were working together. Then, a low creaking sound filled the air, the kind that makes your bones tighten. Carter looked up at the ceiling panels. "The pressure," he whispered. Before anyone could react, the ceiling burst open. Thousands of gallons of seawater thundered into the lab, knocking them off their feet and dragging equipment away like paper. The last thing Carter saw before the blackout was the shark's eyes staring through the flood. Watching. Calculating. The silence after the flood was worse than the explosion. Water lapped against the corridor walls. Somewhere in the dark, metal groaned. Deep, hungry sounds of a dying structure. The only light came from flickering red alarms and the dim blue glow seeping through cracks in the walls. Carter opened his eyes underwater, lungs burning. He surfaced, gasping, the salty tang of seawater stinging his throat. Beside him, Dr. McAllister clung to a floating lab bench, her hair tangled with wires and blood trickling from a cut above her brow. "Where's Whitlock?" she rasped. Carter didn't answer. The empty corridor said it all. They began moving slowly, pulling themselves across what was left of the laboratory. Everything was shattered, microscopes floating, papers drifting like ghostly jellyfish. And then, a ripple. Something below. A shadow moving faster than thought. "Don't move," Carter whispered. The shadow circled once, twice, then vanished beneath the murky water. That's when they heard it. Thud. A distant metal clang from the next section of the station. Then another. The sharks were testing the structure, learning which walls were weakest. Elsewhere in the complex, Preacher was crawling through a flooded hallway, a flashlight clenched between his teeth. The water was waist-deep and rising. He muttered nervously, "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no." The light beam flashed across a motionless body. He turned it over. It wasn't human. It was the upper half of a shark, the lower half missing, torn apart. Preacher's breath hitched. "Now, which one of y'all did this?" Suddenly, a fin sliced through the water behind him. The living shark, bigger, smarter, slammed into the wall, shattering pipes and bursting open a wave of pressure. Preacher dove into an A vent just in time, climbing upward as water surged below. The shark rammed again, denting the vent. Above the chaos, Carter and McAllister reached the observation deck, which overlooked the main test pool, now open to the sea. Monitors sparked, showing short clips of before the breach. Sharks swimming in coordinated patterns, following laser grids, timing their movements perfectly. McAllister stayed at the footage in disbelief. They're communicating. They're forming strategies. Carter's jaw tightened. They're not hunting to eat. They are hunting to escape. As if on cue, the entire station shook. One of the outer gates had just been ripped clean off. Seawater roared into the lower decks like a living beast. McAllister turned to Carter, terrified. "If they reach the surface." "They won't," he said grimly, chambering a harpoon. "Because we're not gonna let them." But deep down, even Carter knew. The hunt had already begun. The lower levels of Aquatica Station had become a maze of steel and salt water, a tomb that hummed with pressure and fear. Every hallway now slanted at impossible angles. Gravity itself felt uncertain. Somewhere below, an alarm kept repeating, its voice distorted. Containment breach. Level 3 compromised. Containment breach. Carter led the way, waist-deep in black water that reeked of chemicals and blood. Behind him, Dr. McAllister followed, clutching a waterproof case, the research data that had caused all this. Every few steps, she turned at the faint echo behind them. It wasn't just the water moving. It was something else, patient, watching. They reached a heavy door marked Wet Lab B. The key panel blinked red, sparks hissing from the wires. Carter slammed his fist against it, then jammed a screwdriver into the lock. The door hissed open an inch. He shoved it wider, and a wave of water crashed out, sweeping them off their feet. They landed hard, coughing. The room ahead was half flooded, lit by the eerie glow of emergency lights. And floating near the far wall, a diver's mask. Beneath it, a hand. It was Jim Whitlock, or what was left of him. The shark hadn't eaten him. It had experimented. His wounds were deliberate, symmetrical, as though something had been testing how far it could go before death. Dr. McAllister covered her mouth. They're not just evolving physically, they're becoming curious. Carter gritted his teeth. Then we're cutting class short. They moved deeper into the lab, climbing onto a higher platform to stay above the rising water. Every step echoed like thunder. The walls groaned. Somewhere, a vent popped, the sound of compressed air releasing. Then came the sound they dreaded most. The surface of the water broke, just a ripple at first. Then another. Carter raised his harpoon, eyes scanning the reflection of red light on the surface. A shape moved below, massive and deliberate. Move slowly, Carter whispered. Don't splash. Dr. McAllister froze. The surface stilled. Then, out of nowhere, BAM, a full-grown shark rammed the platform from beneath. Metal screamed as bolts tore loose. The platform tilted sharply, throwing McAllister sideways. Carter caught her by the wrist just as she was about to fall into the water. But something else caught her leg. She screamed. The water foamed red. Carter fired the harpoon into the black depths. It hit nothing. The shark had already vanished, dragging her down for a second before letting go. She surfaced, trembling, leg bleeding badly. Preacher's voice crackled suddenly through a half-dead radio. Yo, Carter, you still alive down there? Barely, Carter replied. Where are you? Climbing a kitchen. Don't ask. Preacher wasn't joking. He was on the upper levels, perched on top of a hanging oven, watching as a shark prowled the flooded galley below. The beast rammed the counter once, twice, learning how to reach him. He muttered, Lord, if I make it out of this, I'm going vegan. He spotted a metal ladder overhead, leading to the service hatch. Timing it between hits, he leapt, hands gripping the rung just as the shark burst upward. The beast's teeth missed his feet by inches. He hauled himself up, gasping, just as Carter's voice returned. Preacher, meet us in the central shaft. We're heading for the control room. Copy that. And hurry. These fish got brains now. As the three survivors converged, the camera of their story zooms out, showing the broken facility from above. Three human figures surrounded by dark, endless blue. And circling them, like vultures in slow motion, the sharks, no longer beasts, but architects of their own war. This was no longer about survival. It was about which species deserved the ocean. By now, the remaining survivors, Carter, Dr. McAllister, and Preacher, had climbed their way up through the shattered corridors of Aquatica Station. The ocean was reclaiming everything. Water poured through vents like veins of the sea, dragging equipment, chairs, and human remains into the abyss below. Carter paused at a sealed pressure door labeled Control Core. Its light flickered between green and red. This is it, he muttered. If we can reach the surface elevator, we're out. Preacher adjusted the cross hanging from his neck. If we can reach it before the sharks do. Inside the control core, the air was thick with humidity and dread. Screens sputtered static. The emergency generator flickered weakly, running on its final fuel cell. Dr. McAllister plugged the data case into the main console. Lines of code filled the screen, the neural maps of the shark's enhanced brains. They were trying to reprogram evolution, she said softly. We gave them too much, too fast. They've learned hierarchy, communication, even strategy. Preacher frowned. You're telling me these things got a group chat now? Was, Carter replied. They've got a plan. Suddenly, a deep vibration shook the control room. Not an explosion, a pulse. The lights dimmed, then flared again. The computer pinged. Surface elevator sequence. Manual override detected. McAllister's face went pale. They're activating the surface lift from below. They're escaping, Carter said, realization dawning. They've learned how to use the damn facility. He ran to the side console, switching cameras between flooded sections. On one feed, the ocean churned violently. A massive shark, one of the enhanced alphas, swam toward the reinforced surface gate, its movements deliberate, coordinated. They're not trying to kill us, McAllister whispered. They're trying to leave. And if they reach open water? Preacher asked. They'll breed. Smarter, faster, unstoppable. Carter loaded the last remaining harpoon with a detonator charge. Then we stopped them before they break the surface. The three made their way to the surface shaft, a cylindrical tunnel rising toward the night sky above the ocean. The walls echoed with mechanical groans as the lift began to move. Through the grating below, a massive shadow ascended with it. They're inside the lift, Carter said, voice low. We'll blow it before it breaches. They climbed the maintenance ladder running along the side of the shaft. Every clang of metal echoed through the structure. Midway up, the shaft shook again. The shark rammed the inside of the elevator. Water exploded upward, drenching them. Preacher slipped but caught himself, panting. This is officially the dumbest prayer I've ever answered. Carter reached the upper panel, slapped the detonator charge on the frame, and armed it. McAllister, get ready to climb when I give the word. But before he could finish, the alpha shark rammed again. The explosion triggered early. A flash of red fire tore through the shaft. The water turned into boiling foam. The lift tore apart, flinging debris upward. Carter and Preacher clung to the ladder as the explosion's pressure blasted past them. McAllister lost her grip and fell. Her scream echoed once before being swallowed by the roaring ocean below. Carter shouted her name, but only silence answered. Moments later, the sea poured into the upper bay. The ocean had finally claimed Aquatica. Carter and Preacher reached the surface hatch, pushing through twisted metal until, at last, they broke into open air. The night sky was crimson with fire. The facility burned from within. Around them, the sea hissed like an angry god. They paddled toward a floating platform, gasping, broken, alive. But beneath the waves, the camera followed one last shadow, massive, intelligent, gliding silently into the black. Carter turned toward the horizon. You think it's over? Preacher stayed down at the water. Nah, evolution don't end. It just waits. The survivors, Carter, Susan, Preacher, and Tom, descend into the flooded lower decks. The emergency lights flicker, throwing red streaks across the walls like veins pulsing through steel. Every sound echoes too long. Every ripple in the water feels watched. They pass the specimen storage wing. Dozens of shattered tanks, floating tags marked Experimental Subject A-47. Each tag bears the same note. Increased brain mass confirmed. Behavioral unpredictability escalating. Then, on the far wall, a set of scratch marks spells something impossible. Letters, carved by something with intelligence. Set US free. Tom freezes. They can write now, he whispers. But Carter's expression hardens. No, he says. They're showing us they always could. The group pushes forward, air thinning, metal groaning above them. Behind, faint echoes ripple through the corridor. 3 distinct splashes, slow, deliberate. They are being followed. They finally reach the central lab, the heart of Aquatica. Broken monitors hum weakly. The walls are lined with preserved shark embryos, some with deformed human-like eyes. It's there that Susan finds her hidden journal, the the one she thought she destroyed. Preacher opens it, flipping through pages trembling in his wet hands. Inside, calculations, diagrams, and a name written over and over again. Neural expansion phase 4. The thinking predator. Susan breaks down. It was supposed to be a cue, she whispers. The enzyme rewires brain tissue. But it didn't stop growing. It started learning. Tom studies the last entry. Cognitive leap achieved. Subjects self-aware. Preparing containment lockdown. Then the lights die. The room plunges into darkness. From somewhere in the flooded halls, a metallic groan turns into a deep vibration. The water ripples. And then, a fin slides silently past the doorway. Carter whispers, "They're not locked in here with us. We're locked in here with them." They climb to the wet stairwell, trying to reach the surface elevator. Tom goes first, but halfway up, a blur flashes below. The water erupts. A single scream, then silence. Only a bloody handprint remains on the rail. Preacher and Susan freeze in horror. Carter fires a harpoon into the dark, pulling Tom's shattered body back up, his eyes frozen in disbelief. The shark didn't kill to eat. It killed to send a message. Hours pass. They hide in a maintenance chamber. Preacher hums quietly, praying under his breath. Then, as lightning flashes through a cracked skylight, Susan looks up and says, "If we destroy my research, all of this, every death, will mean nothing." Carter looks at her, jaw set. "Then you'd better decide," he says. "Save humanity or save your mistake." In a moment of silence, she takes the canister containing her serum, the supposed cue, and drops it into the rising flood. It sinks into the darkness below, glowing faintly like a lost soul. The ocean is winning. Aquatica groans, collapsing piece by piece. Smoke, steam, and seawater mix in the corridors. Preacher is injured, his leg torn, blood in the water. Carter drags him to the last remaining airlock, where Susan is setting a final charge on the steel gate. Their only chance: lure the alpha shark into the flooded pen, blow it to pieces before it escapes into open water. If it reaches the ocean, there will be no stopping what it's become. They wait. The water stills. Then the fin appears, circling. Carter dives in, a decoy. The shark lunges, faster, smarter than ever. It dodges traps, calculating distance, learning movement mid-fight. Then, impact. The shark bites through the gate, dragging Carter under. For a full minute, the water churns red. And then, silence. Susan triggers the detonator. A thunderous blast shatters the surface. Steel bends. Water explodes skyward. Fire ripples through the waves. When the smoke clears, only Preacher remains, floating among the wreckage. Carter surfaces moments later, barely alive, gasping. They cling to a piece of debris as the sun rises. The ocean looks peaceful again, as if nothing happened. Preacher sighs, shaking his head. "Brothers and sisters, I think I'm giving up fish for good." A distant hum echoes beneath them, faint, mechanical. The camera zooms slowly downward, beneath the waves, revealing one remaining embryo drifting in the depths, glowing softly, its tiny jaw moving like it's whispering. The ocean is vast. It hides more than it reveals. And sometimes, what we call extinction is just evolution learning patience. The survivors left Aquatica behind. The remains were sealed, buried, and forgotten by the world above. But in the deep, where pressure crushes sound and light never reaches, something stays. Scientists say the human brain is only 10% understood. Sharks used 80. Now imagine if that intelligence kept growing. Next time you stay at the dark water, remember, intelligence doesn't need eyes. It only needs time. And the ocean has plenty of that.